what the Christmas story tells us about angels, dreams, and journeys. We looked at Gabriel last week, this angel whose very name means man of God or strength of God, and how he came to Mary with this life-changing news that she would become pregnant and the baby she would deliver would be the Son of God. We talked about it, how it was the message that troubled Mary at first, not Gabriel's appearance at all, as it wasn't mentioned, so that most likely he was a person, a stranger, used by God to bring an important message. We talked about how God still uses people today in our lives, messengers, angels, to deliver important and yet sometimes difficult messages for us. We talked about how the first words Gabriel said to Mary was, "Greetings, you who are highly favored." And how Mary, being highly favored, had to endure a long journey while 9 months pregnant, bringing her far away from her family, how she had to bear this pain of childbirth in a cattle stall, how she had to watch her son grow up hated by the most powerful people of the day, watch him go to the cross to be crucified. And yet, the messenger angel Gabriel, his first words, "Mary, you who are highly favored by God." This gives us the message that when we are faithful to God and God is working in our life, life can still be difficult. There is still sickness, there is still death, there are still broken relationships and financial difficulties, and yet, like Mary, God will provide what we need to get through the difficulties, through the troubled times, through the hardships and the challenges. Today, we look at what the Christmas story tells us about dreams. In the gospel lesson we just heard John read, "There's an angel of the Lord, a messenger, appearing to Joseph in a dream, telling him to take Mary as his wife, that this baby is of the Holy Spirit." We are told that when Joseph woke up, he did what the angel commanded. Dreams. What do you think about dreams? Do you ever remember your dream vividly when you wake up and then you go to tell someone, "I had this dream this morning," and it's like you totally forget it? That doesn't just happen to me, does it? Okay? All right. And many times I think we kind of discount dreams that we have while we're sleeping. We might think of them as unimportant, or, "Oh, well, I ate that piece of cake before I went to bed last night," or "I watched that strange TV show or movie," or we attributed it to stress. And some dreams certainly can be attributed to these things. However, I believe that just as God sent angels in the first century and still sends us angels today, I believe the same thing about dreams. And that we miss the importance of them sometimes. We can miss the moment when God is trying to speak to us in a dream because we're not paying attention. Just like we can miss the important messages that someone might say to us and we don't want to hear it. We can miss God trying to reveal a message to us in dreams. Now, I know a lot of us, we're familiar with Joseph had a dream, but I don't know if you realize how many dreams are mentioned early on in the Old Testament. So I'm going to go through some of those. It's filled with dreams. In fact, the very first time we hear of a dream in the Old Testament is when God delivered a message to a non-believer about Abraham's wife. In Genesis 20, verses 6 and 7, we hear, "But God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, 'You are as good as dead because of the woman you have taken. She is married.' Now Abimelech had not gone near her, so he said, 'Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Did he not say to me, Abraham, that she is my sister? And did she not also say he is my brother?'" Some of you that might sound familiar to you about when Abraham, he was afraid of the consequences because Sarah was very beautiful. Says, "Oh, this is my sister, you can have her," whatever. So he says, "I have done this with a clear conscience and clean hands." And God says, "I know you did this with a clear conscience, so I've kept you from sinning against me. Now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet. But if you do not return her, you may be sure that you and yours will die." Now God showed up in a dream to a person who was not anointed, not a prophet, not even a believer. Then we have, also in the book of Genesis, Isaac's son Jacob, who had that dream while he's fleeing for his life from Esau. He stopped at a place and put a stone under his head, and he dreamt about the stairway going to heaven to earth, and he woke up, God is here with me. God was letting him know that God was there. Didn't have to be in a temple. Jacob's son Joseph also had dreams. The one where he dreamed about sheaves of grain, and that he told his brothers that your sheaves of grain bow to my sheaves of grain. Of course, his brothers didn't like that too much because he was the youngest, the dad's favorite. Their jealousy overtook them. Remember, they left him in a pit, and he went off to Egypt. Dreams. While Joseph was in Egypt, he interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh. The 7 fat cows and the 7 sleek cows, and Joseph's like, that's 7 years of prosperity and 7 years of famine. And it was. In the book of Judges, Gideon overhears enemies speaking of a dream, and they were interpreting it. And I won't go into the details, but they interpret this dream to the point where Gideon, he returns to the camp and says, "Get up, the Lord has given the Midianite camp into your hands." This is how strongly people believed in dreams. I'm telling you about all these. And there's more. In fact, I even wrote more, but I'm just, you get the gist, right? You get the gist. There's a lot of dreams going on in the Old Testament. It reminds us that dreams, they were not only a part of their normal life, but they regarded them as messages from God. And they acted upon them. So, if this was one of the ways that God spoke to people then, isn't it still reasonable to think that God could still speak to us sometimes in that way? Through a dream? We get so used to dismissing our dreams. What if Joseph, Jesus' earthly father, had dismissed this dream and just chalked it up to eating a little too much fig cake the night before? Right? It would have changed the whole Christmas story. What if he didn't listen to it as a word from God? So what has changed? Why does it seem that we do not hear from God in this way now? Well, people in the first century, they worked very, very hard. But they did not have the distractions that we have today. They did not have television. They did not have telephones. They did not have telemarketers. They did not have computers. They did not have cars to travel to and fro. They had their family and friends to talk to. It was a much less distracting time of life. They were focusing on one thing at a time. So I believe they were more attuned to hearing a word from God. That for us gets drowned out by the noise and the bright lights and the travel. Somewhere a while back I read, someone observed, and don't ask me after worship what are those 12 locations, because I have no idea. I'd have to look it up again. But someone observed that there are only 12 places in the United States where you can go for 15 minutes without hearing any man-made noise. 12 places in the United States that you can go for 15 minutes and not hear any automobiles, air traffic, generators kicking on, anything like that. Isn't that unbelievable? We get so used to the noise. Like, we turn a fan on for background noise to fall asleep. I mean, right? We're so used to it. God spoke to Joseph in dreams. Later, remember, Joseph had a dream. Take Mary and Jesus and flee to Egypt for their protection. What if he hadn't listened? Joseph's dreams called him to devote himself and the rest of his life to nurturing, mentoring, and protecting Jesus. So this is the question for you today. Are you listening for God to speak to you in every possible way? Through angels, messengers in our lives that bring us a word from God that it's not always easy to hear. Through dreams. Are you listening to your dreams? Because they can make a huge difference in your life. So the next time you dream, I suggest, and I have done this, I would not ask you to do something I have not already done, is you keep paper and a pen next to your bedside. And when you wake up and you're like, whoa, that dream, you write it down. Right then. You write it down. Then you can reread it later and see if it is something that God has a message. I'm going to share one time that this happened with me. I had a dream. It was after my dad had died. And it was very vivid that someone asked me for help. It was a person at the church I was serving. And we did a lot for that family and so forth. And they asked for help. And I said, no, we really can't do that this time. And my father was in the dream and said, he was disappointed in me in the dream. And I woke up feeling horrible. So I wrote it all down now. I wrote, what happened, what I said. And as I was writing, it was like the Spirit speaking to me. As I was writing, it was like, there's a difference between helping and enabling. Your dad, he didn't differentiate. My dad did a lot for people. In fact, I remember at his funeral, I was just in earshot, someone says, I bet there's not a person standing here right now that wasn't helped by Howard Frace. That's the way my dad, right? But they didn't, they didn't know about helping versus enabling. Teach a person to fish rather than give the fish, right? It wasn't like that. And so as I was journaling this dream, it was like God was assuring me. Because I felt bad saying no. I've become better at that, but this was in the beginning of ministry, and to have to say, no, I don't think so, that was hard, and I felt like, didn't come natural. So this dream helped me reconcile. I hope that makes sense. It was a while ago, but I will always remember it. So I'm not sure that every dream we have is from God. I'm not saying that, because it certainly could be that extra slice of cake we had before bed, or that movie or TV program where we're stressing about something. But I do believe God still speaks to us through dreams if we are willing to take that extra step and listen. So may we begin this third week of Advent to listen for those dreams that God will provide for us. Thanks be to God. Amen. Let us close.